There's a lot of fear that a lot of people carry in general. There's a lot of trauma that people have, a lot of unconscious memories that they're just not aware enough about to be able to create proper solutions, and they start attacking things from the surface level of the issue. It's not even about getting a girl that feels good for a man. It's about having the freedom to just say it. Hey, I like you. What's your name? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many men out there that are just afraid of doing that alone because they associate it with shame. I think a lot of times people confuse self-care and they stop with just that's okay. And then they do it again. When it's like self-care is not just leaving it at that's okay. It's, hey, what can I do tomorrow to make sure I really feel that tension and not act on it? What I guide him back towards is, one, forgiveness, of course. Two, let go of the stories and the thoughts that he associates with his power as bad, which is essentially shame, right? I am bad. This part of me is bad. When I'm able to help him see it from that light, he now is able to integrate his strength, which is the thing that he had shame about originally, back into his business, his relationships, because strength and power is not bad. It's just the way that it's used.
You've been guiding men into power through cognitive spiritual methods, something that you have on your Twitter bio. What inspires you? What happens in your own life that leads you into that path?
Yeah, beautiful question, man. So, as a lot of people in the personal development world, a lot of men specifically, I first got into this world and this space and this interest just through the basic mindset principles, habits, structure, thinking with a more, I guess you could say, with a more motivational cap on, right? It started when I was just going to the gym for weight loss while I was also expanding my audience on Twitch. I used to be a live streamer on Twitch before I got into consciousness expansion. So here's where the turning point happened. I knew I had a lot of trauma, insecurities that needed to be dealt with. But at the same time, traditional therapy was not working for me. Whenever I go to the therapist office, it was just the conversations were dull. I was just getting validated for my problems the entire time. And like intuitively, I knew something is off here. Something just doesn't click. Something is just not making sense with this. So through kind of just like the search bar on Spotify, looking up all these podcasts related to relationships, there's a lot of trauma that I had with relationships we can dive into if you're curious about. But I wasn't really searching for it. I was just searching for something that could give me some clarity. And through that, I got into a lot of content around inner work, around this idea that life is just a story that we create with our mind. That really opened up a lot more for me. And then there was through one podcast from this gentleman who was speaking about cognitive science and the subconscious mind, while also integrating the spiritual values in a very practical way through that science. Things started to make sense for me because before, like, I was exposed to spirituality mostly just from women that I dated in the past who either went to church or were new age spiritual. I wouldn't say atheist was the word. I just kind of knew there was something there, but I didn't pay much attention to whether it was God, universe, whatever, right? I was just kind of went with it. And once I actually started learning the values through the subconscious mind and through a philosophy from this guy, I knew, okay, this guy who's speaking on this podcast has something that's going to help me. So I booked a consultation call with him. We clicked pretty immediately. And from there, he ended up becoming my first mentor, where I really learned what he calls it cognitive mastery and emotional ownership. That's what he called the methodology when I first met him. And then as I was working on my healing and my personal power and my own personal development with him, I really fell in love with the craft. And I knew on that point that just being a Twitch streamer, going online, talking smack, drinking, playing video games for entertainment was not my calling anymore. I knew I had to share this level of healing and personal power with others. So conveniently, when I had this feeling that I had to share it with others, he came out with a new program. It was a 20K program for 1 year, guiding men how to guide using that philosophy. So I signed up for that immediately. It was really nice, though. It was really cool. We had like partners that we could pair up with and practice coaching the methodology on each other. And then we also dive a lot deeper into levels of consciousness through a bunch of textbooks that he would give us and all of that. So yeah, that's what really got me in love with the craft. And now it's the base of my coaching methodology of what I do. As I've grown as a coach and as a man in my own ways and matured spiritually, I've now implemented other methodologies as well on top of that. But like the foundation of what I do with all of my students is always cognitive spiritual, meaning we work on the subconscious mind. And then from there, we integrate these spiritual values. And then we go out there in the world through practical masculine application to be able to create whatever it is that the student wants to create in their life.
How similar is that work to traditional shadow work introduced by Byron Katie and Carolyn Elliott in their books about integrating our subconscious slash unconscious with our conscious to become aware of those unconscious desires that we have that we manifest well unconsciously, but at the same time in a way that we desire them. Like how similar was that?
So, in how I do it, it's as far as like the antidote, the solution, very very similar. To answer your question, very similar. The way I deliver it to my students is we just need to let go of the shame. I try to make it very simple as possible for the guys who work with me and even for myself too. And shadow work is a beautiful way to be able to do that. But I simply don't really call it shadow work. I'll use it as a reference. But what I call it is simply letting go of the shame. It could be shame on a behavior pattern that you don't like. It could be shame on a desire that you do want in your life. It doesn't matter whether the behavior pattern is necessarily good or bad off of society standards or based off the individual who is labeling it as good or bad. We just need to let go of the shame around it. And when we let go of the shame around it, we just see it as a part of being, a part of life, a part of just what is you. And the more we can let go of the shame that's around it, that is how we can integrate it into our world.
So you let it in the way that you approach it, you let go of it before you integrate it? How does that work?
Correct. So we don't let go of the pattern. Remember that. We let go of the shame around the pattern. Key
Yeah,
difference there.
that additional layer of shame, yes.
Exactly. Because when you let go of the shame around it, you're able to integrate it. So, for example, let's say I have a student who is actually kind of a recent example with a student of mine. He is afraid of being able to use his power, to be able to use his strength, because he has shame around it. When we dove into why he has shame around it, it went back to memories of him being a kid and picking on his sister. So he associated in his mind his power with picking on his sister when he was a kid, and maybe some of like the harm that it did, the clashing of heads. Maybe she felt bullied by his power, and because of that, what I guide him back towards is one, forgiveness, of course. Two, to let go of the stories and the thoughts that he associates with his power as bad, which is essentially shame, right? I am bad. This part of me is bad. When I'm able to help him see it from that light, he now is able to integrate his strength, which is the thing that he had shame about originally, back into his business, his relationships, and he's able to integrate it into those things, because strength and power is not bad. It's just the way that it's used.
Yeah. So how does one let go of it, because it's so easy to say, right? I can just
Yeah, I agree.
because we could use something that is inherently shameful, especially for men who struggle with porn addiction. I'm sure you have your story related to that. I have mine. Most men do.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's easy to say, well, just let go of it. But an immediate rebuttal I have in my mind is like, oh, but what if I let go of the shame? Will I not accept the fact that I'm doing something that is taboo filled? Will that not just fuel the reality that I am in a cycle that I know is shameful? How do you approach that?
Beautiful question, man. Beautiful question. Because there's a few key components here that you just asked in that question, which I love about that question so much. One, there is the component that I will not be able to trust myself to discern what is healthy or unhealthy for me without shame.
Hmm.
That is one way that we've been conditioned by society to operate. Not only with porn, I love that you use the porn addiction, but with junk food,
Yeah.
with good habits and bad habits, with showing up and doing the work that you're supposed to do versus avoidance, right?
Hmm.
We believe because of the way society brought us up, I'll use a simple example, getting good grades versus bad grades, right? Studying versus not studying as a kid. You should be ashamed of yourself for not doing the work. You should be ashamed of yourself for getting this grade. We're taught that in order to avoid shame, we must do certain things to avoid it, to avoid the thing that brings us shame.
Hmm.
But it's not the thing itself that brings you shame, it's the story and the narrative that you create behind those things.
The
So
association.
how does one let go, right? I could say meditate, I could say do this somatic therapy work. From what I've found from my experience, I know there's a lot of people out there who really go by it and they say, "Oh, I was able to release the shame overnight and I'm a free man today." Right? Hey, some people, if they claim that, I support it, right? I support it. How I do it is I work on it more like a mental muscle,
Hmm.
right?
Over time.
We want to exactly all the time, consistently. And I do that a lot through journaling prompts that I give my students. And then when I'm guiding them on their inner work, I'm able to give them new perspectives, new focal points for them to then bring back into their daily journals, meditations, contemplations that come up throughout the day. Because
Hmm.
in the brotherhood community that I run, Divine Alchemy, once you're able to create that inner awareness, what I've noticed with the students is it becomes a part of their lifestyle. They become more inward thinkers over time. So when I'm able to guide them around a certain energy that they want to release or let go of or change the narrative of, they know it's a practice. They know that it's not going to be an overnight change. But if they practice creating new narratives around the thing that they feel ashamed about, over time, it becomes a part of who you are. And when it becomes a
Yeah.
part of who you are, you feel more free.
Yeah. So it's a way to become aware of stuck energy, that you find ways through prompts, through journaling, through tools to shift your perspectives, so that that energy can be used for something more creative, something more productive, something more loving, maybe towards oneself or family or
Yes.
relationships. Because so many
Yes.
times, especially for my own story, that stuck energy, to a certain degree still, but also more in the past, where I used that to reinforce those bad patterns, to give myself reasons to be shameful, because that was what was comfortable. It was what was usual. It was a habit of feeling shameful. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. No, exactly. And that's, I mean, you said it right there. It's a habit. That's really all shame is.
Yeah.
It's a habit that we fall into. So it's like just like any other habit, you could unlearn one, create a new one. And what is that new one? Grace, understanding, acceptance.
Yeah.
There's especially acceptance too. There's a lot, especially once you're in the personal development world, it's like your mind just gets warped into what a perfect human is, and you try to chase that. But you're
Yeah.
rejecting who you are right now in the entire process of it, which is so counterproductive. But it's also just like acceptance. There is a calm and an ease like this when you have this inner knowing that, okay, I engaged with porn today. We'll use porn as an example. Sure, that was not healthy. Sure, that wasn't good. But you know what? I'm a human. And this is okay. What can I do tomorrow to avoid this? What can I do tomorrow to learn to just feel the urge of sexual tension better and not chase a release from it? And now we're engaging in solutions. Now we're engaging in self-loving care. And you see, I think a lot of times people confuse self-care and they stop with just that's okay. And then they do it again. When it's like self-care is not just leaving it at that's okay. It's, hey, that's okay. What can I do tomorrow to make sure I really feel that tension and not act on it? What
Yeah.
emotions do I need to feel more comfortable with so I can be okay with not chasing relief?
Yeah. That was the turning point for me as well. It's the understanding that I'm almost afraid to feel certain emotions.
Yes.
Unconsciously, I'm dodging it without really knowing that I'm dodging it. And it feels pretty desperate in that moment. Like in the moment of those stirred up emotions, that energy that wants a release, we're so used to over God knows how many years different guys or probably women as well have a habit of watching it or using it
Yeah.
as an escape. Like it's not just to reverse that. It's not like understanding how is such a steep, I don't know, step. For me, it was at least to understand that I was
Yeah.
escaping an emotion. It was so. First of all, it still happens that I have those emotions stirred up, and I'm still practicing to a degree, just sitting with it. It's at times, how do I put it? It's like a sensation of desperation. Like I feel like I'm gonna explode, and it feels so uncomfortable. But learning to just sit with it is really the solution, or at least it has been for me.
Yes.
To understand that that's not only temporary, but it's a way to channel my energy differently.
100%, man. 100%. And I appreciate you sharing that as well, because for those listening, it's like there's a there's a comfort in knowing that the solution really is feeling an emotion and not acting on it.
Yeah,
And that it's okay to just feel that emotion. We don't have to be in a perfect state all the time.
yeah,
Especially with like how manifestation content has gone so mainstream nowadays.
yeah. The
Especially for
law
the
of
men who
attraction
like want
stuff.
something. Yes, exactly. It's like for a lot of the men out there who follow it and they maybe want a certain thing, like a girlfriend or this amount of money, they hear a lot of times, well, you have to be it in order to have it, and you got to be in this perfect state and always grateful. And it's like, yes, like these things still apply, but don't take it to the extreme to believe you got to be 100 every day. Don't take
Yeah,
it to the extreme and think that you can't feel bad emotions, whatever a bad emotion even is. Even this idea of good or bad emotions, it's just societal conditioning that we have fell under.
and it can feed the negative loop as well. Because if you feel like or think that you have to be in this perfect state all the time, and then you experience yourself a moment or a day or maybe even a week where you have a shit time, and that reinforces the idea that you're never, this is not for you, and you're doing something wrong, and now you're going to go back into your bad habits, and then it's just this negative cycle of shame, I guess.
Exactly.
So knowing how to sit with the uncomfortable situations and emotions and sensations in the body breaks that pattern. At least it did for me.
100%, man. 100%. And honestly, that really is what good regulation is at the end of the day. I'm not a, and I'm just speaking for myself and how I do things. I'm not a huge fan of like having to create a technique for yourself every single time a big emotion comes up. Sometimes
Yeah,
the technique literally just is breathing into it and feeling it
yeah,
for as long as you need to feel it for.
yeah. What advice do you give to men, or I guess anyone who isn't necessarily your student, but who's trying to get out of a mundane, repetitive cycle and lifestyle?
Okay. That's a really good question because I love diving into the nuance of things, man. When you say a mundane and repetitive life cycle, what does that mean for you?
It's a good follow up. It's what we're talking about. I feel like there's so many people like myself who never think I'm alone about something. I spent years, probably a decade, knowing that I wasn't living up to my potential. I knew that I was in a negative spiral of negative habits. I knew that I wanted out. And it took persistence to find what would work for me, to finally find what worked for me. I can only imagine how many are still stuck in that loop with
Yeah.
everything that you were struggling with when it comes to gaming and the addition of porn and bad diets and poor relationships. Like I've lived it all. Drug abuse.
Yeah.
That to me is a mundane and repetitive lifestyle. It's a life that was comfortable because I knew it. I understood it. I knew I could keep myself escaping forever to not necessarily feel what I now understand that I need to feel. So how do you snap somebody out of that? Like how do you get him out? How do you,
Yeah.
and not necessarily like put him on an ayahuasca trip or something extreme, but more like that moment of clarity where you have to be like, just get this one thing and act on it. Like what is that piece of advice?
Yeah. It's going to depend per student, of course,
Sure.
because some students come to me with bad habits. Some of them come to me, they already have some pretty good habits, but their
Yeah.
mindset just isn't right and it's directing them in the wrong way towards maybe a dating life that they want or a business that they want, which are usually the two main things that guys come to me for. So I'll give you one example with one of my students. One of them was avoiding his tasks on creating content on X because he was getting high and playing a video game instead. I forget what the video game was, but he was getting high and he would go to video games and then get nothing done. And he wanted to get out of it. So first I explained to him a little bit, through guidance. I didn't just jump right into it. At first I guided his mind. I asked strategic questions for him to understand a little bit more of why he's doing these things. I showed them the pattern because it's one thing for me to just say, all right, we'll just drop the weed and get shit done, right? It's one thing to tell someone that, but they're not going to really feel it until they understand why they behave the way they behave.
Hmm.
So whenever I try to implement a new pattern or take away a new or an old pattern, excuse me, I'm always making sure they understand why,
Hmm.
because when you understand why, you're going to trust yourself and trust the process more and understand it better. When you understand something better, you have more of a felt motivation within to internally make a change. When
Yeah.
you just intellectually know it's what's the right thing to do and what's not the right thing to do, it's still very intellectual. It's up here, it's not in here.
Hmm.
So I do my best to always go into the underbelly of what's going on the surface first so they can understand through here what's going on. So that's what I did with the student. And then after that, what we did was I created a challenge for him that I learned from one of my mentors called the No Buffer Challenge. In my program, buffering essentially just means avoidance of the discomfort and chasing comfort. That could be through porn, alcohol, weed, drugs, junk food, even watching self-development videos to avoid actually getting uncomfortable, getting your hands dirty, doing the work. So we call that buffering in my program. So it's called the No Buffer Challenge. And the way the No Buffer Challenge works is you set a time frame for yourself, 30, 60, 90 days, that you will not touch that thing, whatever that thing is. In this case, for him, it was weed and the video games. So, okay, no weed and video games. And that's when I teach him, all right, what you want to do during these 30, 60 to 90 days is you want to count your urges. You want to feel your urges, not act on them. And then you can put a coin in a jar, or you can just do a tally on a whiteboard or on a notebook somewhere, or a Post-it note. And I would tell them, okay, from today till next week, I want you to collect 100 urges for me. Why do I say I want you to collect 100 urges for me? The reason why I say that to them is because when I teach them to collect an urge, I'm showing them that urges are not scary. Urges can be a beautiful thing. There's nothing wrong with an urge. I want you to have more urges.
Yeah.
I want you to learn that you can feel something and not act on it. Because now they're building a new subconscious program. They're building a new pathway to associate urges with good. They're associating feeling an urge and not acting on it with a reward. And if they decide to use a coin in the jar, once the jar fills up, go buy yourself something. Go treat yourself, whatever that could be. And that's the way I run it with them. And if they decide that they want to engage with weed, they have to schedule it out at least a week beforehand. The reason why I add that in there is because I want to remind them that they also have the power. Now it's optional. They don't have to do it. But if they really, really want to smoke some weed, if they really, really want to have a few drinks, whatever that thing could be, okay, schedule it in your calendar about a week beforehand. The reason why is I want them to be able to feel like they're in control of the drug itself or the pleasure-seeking behavior itself. Now, some people out there teach that drugs are bad, alcohol is bad, video games are bad, TV is bad. I don't go off that frame. Now, I have some of my opinions on certain things being bad, but at the end of the day, based on the methodology that I use, I want them to understand that it's not those things that are bad. Those are just mirrors of their own subconscious mind. At the end of the day, you are the one who makes that thing good or bad. Now, some students will run with it on the other side and be like, well, I mean, if I'm drinking alcohol every day, isn't that bad? And I'm just like, well, if it goes against your values and what you want to create in life, then yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad. But like, for example, there's a lot of people out there who are not in tune with their purpose. They work really hard every week on a job they don't like, and then they go drink afterwards. And they're not even aware of it being bad. So is it bad for them? Well, now that's subjective. And that's where we get really philosophical with it. Yeah. But I do that. I give them that option just so they know they have the power. Nothing can break their power outside of them. Only they can break it within. So that is what I'll steer them towards. But they don't have to do it. It's just if you decide to do it, it has to be a week out in advance. And if they feel an urge and act on it during our time together, no biggie. Let's journal why. Let's dive into your mind and see what was so bad about that moment specifically that you felt like you needed relief. And then that is where we can really unravel some of the shame, the guilt, the discomfort, the loneliness that is happening within themselves, that they can be like, wow, this activity that I was engaging with really was a buffer for loneliness. That's a common one. A buffer for shame. a buffer of
Boredom.
boredom, feel of failure, and then they're learning more about who they are in the process of doing the no buffer challenge.
Seems pretty similar to the shadow work aspect of things, integrating the unconscious. It just makes sense. It's a great way to do it, man. Like, I think a lot of people, especially young guys, which seems to me like I don't want to say target audience, but it does feel like we men, masculinity is like fighting to survive here. It does seem
I
like many
agree.
of us have fallen to, yeah, the things we're talking about. And like chivalry is lost, and powerful family values have lost.
Yeah,
And they've gone pretty quickly. It didn't take long from the moment. I don't know when was the decline of people not having as many kids anymore, people not marrying. I don't remember. I saw a chart. I don't remember exactly, but I feel like it's an important thing to do something about. Like, it's not necessarily climate change that's going to mess up humanity. I feel like this population decline thing has a bigger chance at ruining the next few decades, maybe even
I
longer
agree.
than that.
I
Yeah.
agree.
What's your take on that?
Well, the biggest thing I would say on all of it, whether because some for the when it comes to masculinity, a lot of men in this online space, which I don't agree with them, they want to point the finger at feminism. They want to point the finger at um, women or feminine ideologies, whereas I see things from more of a balanced perspective. If you go too extreme with the feminist perspective, they start hating men and all that stuff. That's unhealthy. We go too extreme with, oh, be a man, be a tough guy, right? Don't be a pussy. That is too extreme.
Yeah.
So the way I see it is that there's a lot of fear that a lot of people carry in general. There's a lot of trauma that people have, a lot of unconscious memories that they're just not aware enough about to be able to create proper solutions that go under the underbelly of the issue, and they start attacking things from the surface level of the issue. Now, we see this even in the most mundane, simplest ways of life. For example, if you maybe were abused, bullied, manipulated by someone who's very passionate, loud, has maybe certain facial features that are associated with certain memories. When you meet someone who has those same characteristics, but could be a very wonderful person, our mind already completely judges them as a threat.
Interesting.
Because what's going on here is we're associating people at a surface level as threats. So, in order to be able to create an antidote, a solution for this attack on masculinity, it's important to understand why, right? Why it's even happening in the first place. A lot of women, unfortunately, have experienced a ton of bad behavior from men who were not capable to lead them. Now, can we say this was majority of men? Absolutely not. Can we say that the media does a really good job selling fear because that is what boosts their views? I think that was like after the 80s or the 90s, they realized that news uh, viewership on the news and ratings on the news was just really still and stagnant for a while. And then they realized, oh, wait a minute, these fear-based stuff is really working. So they ramped up the amount of it. And what happened is it created a distorted reality for a lot of people that they now believe this chaos is everywhere. But if you really just walk out your front door and have a normal conversation with people on a day-to-day basis, most people want to give good energy and most people want to receive good energy for the most part. Now, do I believe that a lot of suffering has increased because of the way the media is used? Absolutely. But because of a lot of this fear and a lot of these stories, especially during the woke movement, that associated men as bad because there were some, unfortunately, a lot of men in power who abused that power. What happened is that what was supposed to be a productive conversation to make the world better under men's leadership ended up turning into, unfortunately, men are bad, men are terrible, men are rapists, men are abusers, men are manipulators. And then what happens is they associate man, the embodiment of the masculine energy, as bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start doing that, you actually are now taken away from men who are actually not part of the problem at all, to not even give them the playing field to understand how to use their power, to understand how to express themselves, to understand how to approach a woman and to feel confident being bold, flirtatious, fun loving in a respectful manner, because it's not even about getting a girl that feels good for a man. It's about having the freedom to just say it. Hey, I like you. What's your name? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many men out there that are just afraid of doing that alone because they associate it with shame, sexual
Yeah.
harassment, abuse, something bad's going to happen. And
Rejection.
I can relate to that energy very well. It's a huge part of my story and what I've been through. So once we can understand that, we can now understand the solution. And
Yeah.
what is the solution? Well, the solution would be to be able to create more spaces for men to realize qualities like virtue, honor, leadership, taking initiative, being bold, being assertive, having discipline, creating structure, having empathy, but knowing when that line stops for you in the way you
Set
run your life and the
boundaries.
way you behave. Yes. The order that comes with masculinity.
Yeah.
Once people realize there's nothing wrong with order, it just needs to be channeled into a way that's productive, healthy, benefits themselves and the world around them, then that's the solution.
Yeah.
We kind of have to reteach masculinity again, even though our great great grandparents already knew these stuff intrinsically.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast yesterday where they were talking about where this push to create these cultural, racial, gender differences come from. And they pointed out that the school curriculums many times are a lot of the reason. So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily social media that or the media, because it's so easy to just point the finger and blame social media, because that is what so many people think is the issue. Oh, there's too many views, or there's too much freedom to say what you want. Oh, youngsters and young people are too malleable. Their perspectives are being shaped by randoms. But they pointed out a study that showed that these ideologies are coming from institutions, public
Mm-hmm.
institutions, sometimes private institutions.
Yeah.
That's such a weird thing to me. Like, who is what are those institutions for? When did that change? Aren't we supposed to, teach and create and build the next generation? It didn't feel that way when I went there. To me, school was just, I mean, it wasn't a waste of time because I have friends and stuff like that. But when it comes to my development as a human, I don't know, dude. It wasn't really, thinking back in hindsight, it was not necessarily the best way for me to go. I think a lot of
Agreed.
people feel that way. But
Yeah.
that's what's so strange to me is how are we pushing these dividing ideologies on kids in those institutions when they're supposed to, build us up and create a society that we can all benefit from in the future.
Yeah.
So strange.
No, I agree, man. It's awful. And I agree completely. It's not just the media, it's also in our system, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not just the media. The media is just a part of the system, but it's in our system.
Yeah.
Um yeah, it's gotten a lot worse too since I was in school, because I was speaking to someone from my hometown 3 months ago. I ran into her while I was walking my dog there, and she was telling me that, like, like the kids, the men have to like go into, every once in a while they have this thing that talks about, I guess, just life stuff, I guess, kind of like how you would go to the auditorium. There was some guy talking about how drugs are bad and all that. Um, they had that, and it was like some dude in a dress wearing a man bun telling people that being a man is bad, and that here's how you have to behave in order to, yeah, here's how you have to behave in order to be a good man. And it's just like what they were giving them is like fear-based stuff, that their inherent masculine energy of who they are is bad. And there's nothing wrong with man buns, by the way. I just want to put that out there. There's nothing wrong with man buns.
That's
But
funny.
it was just like a very, you could tell, like, I'm trying to word this nicely, but I'll just say it was a very feminized man who wasn't in his masculine, telling men that they should be ashamed of who they already are. And I guess it got a lot of parents outraged in the community, which is good in that sense. But yeah, I'm even seeing it in the town I grew up in. So yeah, it's sad. It's unfortunate. And this is where we're in a time right now more than ever where it's so important to really hone down on your values with your family. If you're a father, if you're listening to the episode, you're a father who's tuning in, or you plan to be a father one day, it's really, really important more than ever to be able to really have those values figured out with your significant other and with your kids as they're growing, and making sure that you can become a safe place for your kids to seek guidance from. Because if you plan on taking them into the public education system, these are just things that we're going to have to look out for the time until hopefully a solution is created.
Yeah. It is what is causing these surface level cultural debates. I feel like why are we fighting culture wars? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe this is a good segue, I don't know. To celebrate Charlie Kirk dying but being mad at Jimmy Kimmel losing his show. So both are free speech. Charlie Kirk had opinions that I don't fully agree with, but I will die for his right to be able to say those things. The same with Jimmy Kimmel. Do I care that he blatantly lied about who killed Charlie Kirk? Uh, the information was available. Why did he say that when we knew what we all knew and who the killer was? Is he allowed to say what he wants? Sure, there are laws that protects that. So the consequences that followed was Charlie was killed and Jimmy lost his job, I guess temporarily. I don't know if he's coming back. There's this double standard that I actually like the fact that we're having these debates now, because it's exposing a lot of the double standard. It's exposing a lot of opinions that have been formed not through thoughtfulness, but more of like an adoption of ideas. Oh, somebody over there that I like and agree with and trust, maybe the media, maybe my school teacher, whatever, said something, and now I'm adopting that idea and I speak about it as truth. And it just feels such the difference here, the difference in understanding about these two things, which basically are the same thing. People are just having and expressing their opinions, and they are seeing consequences for them. Why do we have to approach these things differently when they're basically the same thing? That to me is
Right.
strange.
No, I agree. And it's like, this is where the politics really gets involved here, because it's like, since 2015 was the rise of the woke movement, and what it turned into wasn't really compassion, empathy, equality. It ended up turning into a power dynamic. And a lot of people who challenged some of the ideologies for a while got fired from their jobs. They weren't able to disagree without getting quote unquote canceled, or someone digging back 5, 6 years, 10 years ago just to cancel someone. And that power dynamic happened. And a lot of people, unfortunately, got canceled for it, were fired from their jobs, were attacked online from it. It impacted their mental health negatively. And when you see that going on, you really realize there's nothing about this that is empathetic, equal for all, or supporting people to have equal opportunity to be able to go out there into the workplace or whatever these causes are that I
Yeah.
guess you could say the left was really pushing for. And then, of course, because it got so popular online, because of clicks, because of views, because those were the types of posts that would go viral and be talked about by many people, a lot of the people who own these social media companies partnered up with that ideology as a whole. And part of owning private businesses are, even though you have free speech in America, you may not have free speech in an office space or in
Yeah.
a um, something that is owned by a private entity, essentially, which that can be fair. You know what I mean? I run a company. If one of my students was harassing another student, it would make sense for me to kick them out. There's rules and regulations to how this works.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, though, the unfortunate nature is it does turn into this power thing. It does turn into this political thing recently.
Yeah.
It's turned into that because when words like this person's a Nazi, this person's a fascist, this person is a homophobe come into play over just a disagreement, it gets pretty controversial. It
Yeah.
gets pretty right? Like it just gets like it turns into a liability for everybody. And
Yeah.
because a lot of these companies don't want to deal with liabilities, which makes sense, they're running a business here, it just makes sense, unfortunately, to fire them instead of having their back and really digging into the situation. But
Yeah.
now what we've realized for the past 10 years is that hasn't been helping anyone. And I think that's why a lot of these companies are now ending their woke stuff. They're ending a lot of these um, ideologies that were pushed on them. I believe a lot of them probably weren't even on board with it. They were just doing it out of fear to get more business. But I think over time, people have really realized that people have been kind of sick of this the entire time. And just because
Yeah.
it was popular in the media doesn't mean it was popular amongst the people.
Yeah.
So now more people are realizing that. But the one thing that I am a little nervous about is this power dynamic going to flip? And now is the left going to be treated like the right was for the last 10 years? That's one thing I don't want to see happening, honestly, because at the end of the day, this
Yeah.
should be about debate and freedom of speech. As far as celebrating a man's murder online, I do believe that is wrong, and there will be consequences for that if the company's values align with celebrating a death of someone being wrong, right?
Right.
Jimmy Kimmel putting out false information on ABC, that's a liability for ABC at the end of the day. So, things like these that, like, in my opinion, in my world frame, actually make sense. Okay, it makes sense to maybe fire certain people because of that.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to turn into another extreme where people in the conservative party are now going to be digging up people's information online to get them fired for something that happens 5 to 10 years ago. I don't believe that we need to stoop down to that same level that's been going on at the 10 years for the last
Yeah.
10 years, excuse me.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I wish that we would just stop talking about race and gender. Like, and that's not to discount them. That's not to say that gays and trans and the LGBTQ community doesn't have equal rights, or that we should push them aside, or that we should focus more on giving reparations to blacks. Like, to me, I like the idea of a meritocracy. Like, one of the things that is a contentious topic of debate on my Facebook when I'm sharing about Charlie Kirk's views is that there's an excerpt of him, or a clip of him, saying something about that he will be extra careful when there's a black pilot. That thing is taken out of context. Oh, Charlie Kirk is a racist. But the entire context of the situation is, if we're hiring pilots to fulfill a race quota pushed upon by some higher up that says that, oh, we need to have more diversity, do I, as a passenger, feel safe with somebody that has been hired to fulfill a quota? Or do I
Right.
feel safer when there's a qualified, trained pilot taking me back and forth to my vacation spot? That was his point. But now he's a racist because he said that, because it's taken out of context. So to me, that's what's frustrating, and maybe I'm wasting my time and energy trying to show others who believe that he's a racist or that he's a misogynist, whatever, the entire story, because we do have proof that he's accepting to all people. I don't really care too much about what you do in the bedroom. Like I literally don't care. It doesn't mean that I'm pushing people away. It doesn't mean that I devalue them, that I look upon them and say that they're less worthy as humans as I am. There's has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that I'd like to see people in those positions, important positions in society, actually be qualified. That's all. I don't care if you what you do in the bedroom or what
Yeah.
color your skin is, right?
No, and that makes a lot of sense, man. Yeah, and I agree with you on that perspective too. This whole race quota thing, again, it's just people who don't understand solutions from the underbelly. They understand it from a surface level and they think that's the fix. When in reality, it's being shown to us that that's not the fix at all. And it's creating actually a lot more problems than probably 10, 15, 20 years ago,
Yeah,
but for the legitimate systematic issues that should have been solved. And now it's
yeah,
like, okay, there are some systematic issues. Great. Can we actually just solve some of those systematic issues then without it being this surface level? Essentially, let's be nice to more black people. Let's be nice to more women. Let's be nice to more gay people.
yeah,
That's not gonna solve anything at the
yeah,
end of the day. And people are realizing, and in fact, it created a lot of entitlement with minority
yeah,
groups. Look,
yeah.
man, like I was Iranian growing up. I got fucking bullied for it. 9/11 happened when I was in school. I
Oof.
would get so much crap for it. And you know what? I just had to learn how to talk back and make my own way into the world.
Yeah,
That's just what I had to learn. And I
yeah,
don't have to ever use the victim race card because I'm an Iranian American. No, it's just listen, if someone judges me because I'm Middle Eastern, they can go fuck themselves. I'm still going to go out here and still win because it's my character that gets me
yeah,
opportunities. It's not my race.
yeah. Or what you do in the bedroom. Like, I totally agree
Right.
with you on that. Like, it doesn't have to be about that. Like, when you're saying, let's be nicer to women or to black people or to LGBTQ community, what about let's just be nice, period?
Yes. Yes. Let's respect each other and also understand that any job, any opportunity that involves a skill must be measured by the skill set, not the person. And look, this is not going to sound good either, but I'm going to say it. Can we also accept the fact that even though disrespecting someone based off their color, skin, race, gender, whatever is bad? Yes. Can we also accept the fact that no matter how much laws and standards we set for the world, there's always going to be that jackass that does it? Yes. And maybe the solution isn't so much what new laws we can set around discrimination, what new things we can do, but it's just we just don't associate with people who are actually out there being racist. But now comes the question, because so many people take that to the extreme, a lot of people are going to realize, well, there's a lot of people who aren't racist out there who are getting labeled as racist anyways. And then that term just starts losing its value. That term just starts losing its meaning.
Yeah,
Um, Especially when we're at a point now where someone just got shot for because why? Well, because people legitimately thought he's a Nazi and a fascist. That is what creates so much of a dangerous rhetoric, and I think more people are just stepping up now with their inherent knowing of just saying like this needs to end because it's not good for the people who actually have experienced racism. It's not good for the people who actually are doing bad things out there to try to wash away a culture. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't
Yeah,
help.
yeah. I wholeheartedly believe that one of our best ways out of this as a culture is to help the individual. What you're doing with
Yes.
young men, or with, I don't know if you only work with men, I assume you do, um, is the way. People understanding how to like themselves more in a way that will is sustainable, that permanently takes them out of their shameful patterns, that makes them understand the benefits of being kind to everybody, to not take things personally based on race or gender or sex or whatever. It's to
Agreed.
focus on what's important to you, build upon those values, and spread the gift that was given to you. Do something that's meaningful to you and help people with it. It's really, it's, I feel like that's the way out. To me, that's the best way out.
I
So
agree, man.
on behalf of all the people that you engage with on social media, and help with your teachings and your methods, I guess it's God's work, because we fucking need it, man. It's really important what you're doing, and I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you, man. I do appreciate that. And you bring up a really good point here, and it really is just about working with the individuals on a day by day basis, and also just practicing embodying that ourselves, because
Yeah,
as the
for
saying
sure.
goes, it takes a village. It
Yeah,
takes a village. It's up to each and every one of us to be able to lead the standard that we want to set out there in the world, because expecting the government, expecting other people to change for things to be ideal is just, it's not working, and
yeah,
it's not the way, and I think that's a huge reason why a lot of people are going back to church. There's a huge spiritual awakening
yeah,
going on here in America, whether that be Christian, New Age, spiritual, whatever it could be. People are just more in tune with
yeah,
the word of God, with the word of the universe, with the word of this oneness. And getting back in touch with that is a beautiful place to start for people.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's a great way to put a wrapper on it, my friend. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your knowledge and the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Felipe. Thanks for having me on, man. Really appreciate it. And I appreciate you, man.
My pleasure.